Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this service of Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, and whatever your faith tradition, you are welcome here. My name is Bo Olgren, and I am the Director of Family Ministry here at QUUF. And I'd like to begin this service by acknowledging that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chemakum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain these homelands. And as we call in our time together, let us settle our minds and calm our hearts with the ringing of our chime. Our call to community today is Loosen Loosen by Allie Halpert, sung for us by Katie Taylor and Heidi Mattern.
Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain?
Thank you, Katie and Heidi. It is now time for our chalice lighting ritual. We light this chalice, offering light to the wick, knowing that light is a gift that we choose, that we are the ones who light the candle with match and hope. We seek healing and light. So why do we burn candles when we are uncertain or hurt or afraid? Why don't we just turn on the electric light when dark is surrounding us? Perhaps because the candle flickers, has moments of incertitude, and says that we too will be good enough, no matter how many times we falter. If the light flickers, it will dance back again, create shadows, be there for comfort. It does not answer our questions, but lets us abide in the darkness, showered with light. So today we hold ourselves in candle hope, honoring the simple healing of candlelight, which allows us to put one foot forward through uncertain times. I'd now like to welcome back Bo, who will share our time for all ages. Bo?
For our Time for All Ages this week, I wanted to share the story about change called Goodbye Friend, Hello Friend by Corey Dorfeld. Every goodbye leads to a hello. Goodbye to sitting alone is hello to sitting together. Goodbye to outside is hello to inside. Goodbye snowman is hello puddles. Goodbye to long walks, butterflies, and the sun is hello to long talks, fireflies, and the stars. Goodbye to an empty bowl is hello to a full heart. Goodbye to only watching is hello to joining in. Goodbye to almost giving up is hello to one more try. Goodbye superpowers is hello sweet dreams. But sometimes when you least expect it, a goodbye comes along that really feels like the end. Sometimes goodbye is the last thing you want to say, like when goodbye to holding tight means hello to letting go. But no matter what, goodbye today is hello tomorrow. Because every goodbye leads to a hello.
Thank you, Bo. What we'd like to do now is acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us this morning. You are invited to say hello in the comments section and tell us your name and where you're from. The chat section can be found below or on the right side of the video when it is out of full screen, and we'd love to hear from you. So welcome, everyone. We're glad you're with us today.
We will now receive our offering. Today, our collection will go towards the building, program, and staffing costs of KUUF, and if you'd like to donate, you have 3 options. First, you can text the amount you'd like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of the screen. Second, you can go to our website, kuuf.org, and click on the giving link. Or third, you can simply mail a check to KUUF. Just remember to put offering in the memo line. We will now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Pamela Roberts and Helen Lauritzen play Mozart's Andantino in A for cello and piano with imagery by Doug Rogers. Thank you, Pamela, Helen, and Doug. We have a few announcements today, and the first is about our Reconnection Fair happening at QUF on Saturday, June 4th. From 1 to 4 p.m., join us to welcome new members as they sign the official membership book, learn about all the opportunities to get involved in fellowship service areas, eat dessert, and have fun. We will also be gathering cards to send to Kate Lohr at the fair. Secondly, tomorrow, Monday the 16th, we are having 2 gatherings to process Kate's leaving. One will be on Zoom at 11 a.m., and the second will be an informal outdoor gathering at QUF at 2 p.m. The link and specifics are in the Friday update, along with details of the many other ways that we will honor Kate's ministry here.
It is now time for our new member recognition ceremony. We have the privilege this morning of receiving 9 new members into our fellowship. On behalf of our board and our entire fellowship, I would like to welcome our new members, Ann Turpin, Susan Landau, Megan Kate, Sam and Rosanna Alme, Barbara McCann, Nancy Sendler, and Mo Wolf, and express my hope that your experience here will be inspiring and transformative, both for you and for our congregation. Our congregation is based on a common covenant, a way of being with each other in a loving, supportive, and cooperative fashion. As such, we will do our best to be a source of strength, compassion, and growth for you, and ask that you too become a source of strength, compassion, and growth for others here. For it is in lifting each other up and working collectively that we make this a vibrant and life-changing community. At this time, I'd like to invite Carol Graves from our newcomer outreach team to introduce our newest members to our congregation.
We are so happy to welcome the following lovely people into our fellowship. Rosanna Alme was born in Fort Worth, Texas in 1951 and met her husband Sadi, also known as Sam, while they were in college. They married in 1971 and have 2 children and 5 grandchildren. Rosanna has taught preschool through college in several subjects and in 4 states. She retired from the University of Georgia in 2012, continuing to teach part-time online until 2016. She's a published poet and education author, works occasionally as an editor and book reviewer, and actively volunteers. She and Sam have been in Port Townsend on and off for 9 years, but just recently moved here permanently. Rosanna loves to spend time with her grandchildren. 2 are here in town, as well as read and discuss books and sew and crochet and meet new folks. She currently volunteers in several ways in Port Townsend. Sadi Alme, Sam, was born in 1947 in Tehran, Iran. He came to the United States in 1968, married Rosanna in 1971, and has 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren. He's a geologist who specialized in environmental issues such as contamination, assessment of hazardous chemicals, and property assessment for real estate transactions. He owned his geological and environmental consulting company for 29 years in Albany, Georgia. He sold the company and retired in 2019 to be close to his daughters and grandchildren in Georgia and Port Townsend. Presently, he lives with Rosanna in Hamilton Heights, Port Townsend, near his daughter Zala and her husband, Mark Weinblatt. His hobbies include walking, hiking, mountain climbing, bicycling, and playing viola, hammer dulcimer, and drums. Megan Kate. Megan and her husband, Esco, moved to Port Townsend after her retirement from the Microsoft legal department in 2005. She became a QUF member that year, but changed to Friends status in order to better support her husband's church. Megan and Esco sang in the QUF choir for many years and helped with building the new sanctuary. She has belonged to 3 covenant groups led Alps classes and affinity groups, and served on several committees. Esco died in 2016. Megan was just getting ready to rejoin when COVID struck. She is looking forward now to getting acquainted with our much larger congregation. Susan Landau. Susan returned to Washington from California and settled in Port Townsend last October. She has 3 granddaughters, 2, 4, and 9 years old, who live in Seattle, as well as a 12-year-old grandson living in Mexico. Susan spent 25 years on the front lines protecting women's reproductive freedom, working in women's clinics. Over the years, she worked in management, administration, and IT. When selecting which town in Washington to live in, one gotta have on Susan's list was that there must be a UU in town or close by. She hit the jackpot of UU cities and is so happy to be here in this magical town. Barbara McCon, resident of Port Townsend since 1993, when her late husband and Barbara drove up the coast looking for a special place to live in retirement, away from big cities, but close enough to go to symphony, etc. Mountains and water were essential, as well as a moderate climate. They fell in love with Port Townsend at first sight. Barbara formerly worked in education administration in Los Angeles County. She doesn't miss the constant sun, huge crowds, and ever-present palm trees. She loves our seasons and tree-lined roads. Alps classes, and this is time in her life for studying what she wants to learn about versus what got her promotions. She was delighted when she realized that QUUF embodied many of her life-acquired beliefs that didn't fit with most organized religion. Barbara is so glad to be here. Nancy Sendler, a writer, contentious coincidence collector, and dandelion lover. Nancy grew up in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, and attended Bates College in Lewiston, Maine, and the University of Bristol in England. Port Townsend, Washington has been her home since 1995. She started attending QUUF services in September and joined this year. Nancy is an active contributor on Zoom to both Sunday coffee hours and monthly newcomer gatherings. And she was a presenter at last week's Sunday service, If I Were a Goddess. Ann Turpin. Ann grew up in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where nearly all her neighbors were Unitarians. Some say it is the highest concentration of Unitarians in a single neighborhood in any red state, possibly the world. In college, Ann studied architecture before switching majors and graduating with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. Much to her parents' skillfully contained dismay, they were both engineers. She then became a goldsmith and opened a small store east of Atlanta. After 8 years, she went back to college and got a degree in civil engineering, much to her parents' unrestrained glee. She moved to Tacoma in 2005 and retired on April 1st of this year, though she's still working on and off, so the April Fool's joke was apparently on her. She hopes to move to the Sequim or Port Townsend area this year, if she can get over the sticker shock of the current housing market. Any and all leads in this subject are greatly appreciated. Mo Wolf. Mo is an emerging adult and has been attending QUUF regularly for about 6 years. He enjoys traveling and hopes to visit many countries and cultures, and he also enjoys the outdoors. Mo loves music and is fond of many genres, and he plays piano, bass guitar, and drums. He is excited to become a full-time member of QUUF. So there you have it, our new members, and we are so delighted to have you all join us.
Thank you, Carol, and welcome to our wonderful and interesting new members. And now please join me in our pledge to these new congregants. We, the congregation of the Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, gladly receive you into our community. Let us join together in working towards a deeper understanding of one another and in upholding our covenant to love, to share, and to serve. Thank you, everyone. Please extend a warm welcome to Anne, Susan, Megan, Sam, Rosanna, Barbara, Nancy, and Mo. When you see them in the chat box on Sunday mornings, in virtual coffee hours, or in-person events on our campus. And join us on June 4th at the Reconnection Fair as they signed the membership book.
We will now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we place this first stone, thinking in particular of our country as it navigates the continued challenges to our reproductive rights. And now in our congregation, we light a candle of healing for Kate Lohr, and we thank her for her gifts to this community, her passion for social justice, and her steady ministry. We will miss you. This next candle is from QUF member Celeste Dybeck, who along with David Toledo was honored with this year's Peace and Friendship Award for her work on the Cheechmahan Trail. She asks us to light this candle of joy for all those who have helped. She couldn't have done it without them. Betty Oppenheimer, Joe Blair, Maria Mendez, Connie Ross, Liz Burden, Terry Dubow, and Lutzi Fenninger. Thank you, team. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows I've just shared, but also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence.
The Journey by Lillian Smith. Without words, it comes, and suddenly, sharply, one is aware of being separated from every person on one's earth and every object, and from the beginning of things, and from the future, and a little from oneself. A moment before, one was happily playing, the world was round and friendly. Now at one's feet, there are chasms that had been invisible until this moment, and one knows and never remembers how it was learned that there will always be chasms, and across the chasms will always be those one loves. Our special music today is called Carry Me by David Burrows. It is performed by the Jefferson Unitarian Church Choir of Golden, Colorado. There is a Jewish tale about a man who felt a huge stone on his heart. And it was a terrible burden, and it grew in weight and strength. And finally, the stone became so strong that it nearly broke him. So he tired, and the weight of that elephant stone broke through his body and fell into his heart. And the man felt so much better. He slept and healed. And when he woke up, he saw a green sprout emerging from his heart, and it cracked through his skin and it grew straight up, almost to the sky. The man then realized that the stone was not a stone at all, but a seed, a healing seed. He had been in so much pain that even the small seed felt like a gigantic rock. What he needed to do was to let his heart crack wide open. Only the broken heart could nourish the seed. Healing begins with the breaking. I don't know about you, but I can certainly attest to this story in my own life. The seed of life was right there in front of me, but I simply could not see it or did not want to see it.
I spend time every week talking to people going through major transitions in their lives. One of the primary ones being a gender transition, either in their own lives or in the lives of one of their loved ones. And it is a time of intense self-reflection, a time of examining everything you thought you knew about yourself or your loved one and reorganizing the pieces into a portrait that can once again make sense, letting that heartstone in. I graduated from high school in Idaho and immediately got as far away as I could manage while not crossing any borders. I packed up every single one of my possessions, put myself on a train, and moved across the country to somewhere I had never been before. I did not cross the Rockies again until I had graduated from college, and even then only came back to move my mom into a new house before I left again, this time moving to a new country. On that first train, a journey that took 84 hours, a night sleeping on a train bench, and the temporary loss of every single one of my belongings, I could feel the world around me spinning. I knew that something in me needed shifting, and that it couldn't be tackled with my old tools. I needed fresh perspectives, new ways of operating, and I needed to dig in. My move to the woods of North Carolina sometimes sounds like running away, and indeed many of my fellow freshmen didn't understand that during breaks I maintained residency by washing sheets and hauling tables on campus instead of finding my way home. But far from flight, I was holding on to myself and diving deep. A transition doesn't require one to physically move, but it does require a psychological shifting. And I was aided in being in a new environment. I was discovering who I was, and I knew I had to take those steps on my own. I came out as transgender within weeks of moving into the Blue Mountains and immediately entered into the process of total recalibration, a liminal space of reflecting on what came before and not even knowing what came next, but knowing I was right where I had to be. I played there for a year, hoping that perhaps I could stay there, that I could avoid telling my family and have a few segments of myself in different places, and that could be okay. I then had a rather arresting moment, sitting in the middle of a seminar on political ambassadors, when I realized that in every future thought of myself, I saw a man. I saw me. It was an arresting moment, because that's when my true transition began, when the healing seed took root.
I lived in the Midwest, and all that I loved was there, but I knew that I no longer belonged, that I could no longer breathe. My religion no longer fit my soul. How does one create a new identity? My heart was yearning and had such a stone on it. And as an only child, how does one leave? One day I saw an advertisement in a local Peace newspaper offering a job in New York City, $6,000 a year. Two of my dearest heart friends shoved me in a car, drove me to New York, bought me an ice cream cone, and left me off at a transition hotel for pennies a night. The hotel was actually called Leo or Lion House. Transitions need the strength of the lion-hearted. I had $500, my lifelong savings, a favorite plant, and a suitcase. I slept long and deep and woke with my heart seed beginning to grow. I lived in New York for over 20 ever-growing, healing years. And those heart sisters went back to Ohio, but we have walked our lives together. We probably all have stories of times when we broke open our hearts and let a seed grow. And it is also possible for an institution to do that heart opening. I believe that every community has a soul and has one ever so precious seed to grow. Some communities, like our besieged Planned Parenthood, are breaking open that stone to find the seed that will propel them forward. One seed to help women know that their own bodies are good, and that if a child is born, it will be one of choice and love. May it be so. Our own country has such an overwhelming stone on its heart, it seems like we may not be able to crack open the seed. But we have broken our hearts, taken the seed, and created a dream of democracy, and generation after generation has broken open their hearts to keep that seed alive. The Civil War, our civil rights movement, our labor movement, and movements for racial, gender, and sexual equality. These are all seeds that grew from broken hearts. This generation can be the one that leans wholeheartedly into the brokenness, creating a new vision. May it be so. And our own QUUF, I believe that some of us feel a stone, perhaps one of mistrust or sadness, or, well, you put in the word that you feel describes the stone, if you have one. Can you feel that stone and let it crack open your heart? Our communal heart. Can you see what will grow when the seed grows out of QUUF? What will healing bring if we have one communal seed? It does not belong to you personally. It is a seed that only grows in community. It has been growing over the years right here, strong and clear.
I was told this week that the word transition holds special power in a congregation, a bit foreboding, signaling shifting under our feet. And to me, transition is iteration, is grief, is loss, but is also growth. I do talk about transitions on the personal level constantly. I mean, daily. Transition to me is as comfortable as clothing. It wasn't that long ago that the US State Department, when issuing passports with someone's corrected gender on them, would ask whether someone's gender transition was in process or complete. And I always wondered how anyone could ever say that any transition was complete. What a peculiar question when we as beings, as bodies, as collectives are in constant change. But there are moments when transition is more obvious, sticking us to attention, confrontingly pushing us to take stock of where we are and where we are going. Hello. This is where we are now. Welcome into this moment. Our congregation has been going through great change for at least 5 years at this point, with the transition from a beloved settled minister in 2018, along with 2 other historied staff within the year, through short-term interim minister, ad hoc interim work, then 2 years of COVID, which has stymied some of our ability to gather and process and do the work of adjusting to that change. And Now, Kate Lohr is no longer one of our ministers at QUUF. The board sent a message this week along with Kate, so some of you may have feelings already, and some of you may be hearing this right now. I want to acknowledge that this news may come as a major surprise, that there are feelings of real grief and loss in this transition. I just want to say, breathe. This is big, and the dust hasn't even begun to settle. Take stock of ourselves and let us be reminded what we are here for as a congregation. That as we speak with honesty, we also put a preponderance on speaking with love. That we are here as a fellowship to serve one another and the wider community, to share with each other, and that we live our principles out and hold ourselves and each other with gentleness and allow people to feel how they feel. That as we process this news and determine what happens next, we remember that we are a larger body and part of a larger body still. To not gloss over this moment, we do need to acknowledge it, speak it, say it. We are in a bigger transition than we had planned for. We didn't think we would need to do another ministerial search so soon, and that it's going to take much longer than we thought. And amid our grief and confusion and frustration, remember that change is a part of its existence in its most fundamental way. That we grow when we are uncomfortable, and that we can learn more about ourselves in our own reflection on and internal responses to change. Do we feel unsafe, angry, worried, excited? When I started telling people more earnestly and intentionally about my own personal transition, it broke open my heart to my own seed. It's also when people's reactions got more hostile and dismissive, because transition of any kind can threaten our sense of safety and stability. But what I have found in my own personal transitioning ever occurring is that what it means is that I'm being fundamentally honest with myself and allowing myself to change. That safety and stability doesn't come from stasis, but from walking hand in hand with growth. We are in a transition as a congregation, and we don't know what comes next. But I also know we're worth the work it'll take to figure it out together.
So how does any group lean into a time of transformational healing and growth? If we follow the heart tale, it means that we acknowledge the stone, feel it, measure it, polish it so that we see our own face, acknowledge that we own the stone and it is ours alone. Welcome the stone, name it, don't fear it, laugh at it, make friends with it, love it, thank it, and then let it know that we need to move on. If the stone is allowed to grow too big, it will kill us. And when we lie down with the stone, let it enter our heart slowly, because it will be painful. So painful that sleep may be part of the healing. But healing means that when we wake up and nourish the seed that grew in the dark and acknowledge that the world has changed, that is what transformation requires. Nothing lasts forever. And if any person or organization stays the same, well, it has already died. And to acknowledge that is one of the first steps in healing. Healing requires a community. Everyone plays a role. We have learned this during this pandemic. We can't exist without a community. The scientists, the doctors, nurses, teachers, grocers, farmers, neighbors, bus drivers, musicians, storytellers, poets, and healers of our soul's anxiety. We are here at a new point of transformation and transition. And we are a body of willing hearts that know how to do this. As one body, we can open our hearts to let the seed drop in. A transition hotel is not a place of fear, but a home of possibility. May it be so. Today's closing song is by Baccio Levine, entitled We Rise.
We rise, humbly hearted rise, won't be divided rise, with Spirit to guide us rise, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In a hope, in prayer, we're right here. In a hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here, and we rise. All of the children rise, elders with wisdom rise, ancestors surround us rise. In a hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In a hope, in prayer, we're right here. In a hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here, and we rise. Up from the wreckage, rise, with tears and with courage, rise, fighting for life we rise. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here, and we rise, humbly hearted rise, won't be divided rise, with Spirit to guide us rise.
Please join us in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. After the service, I hope you will join us for our virtual coffee hour. What you can expect is to be placed in a Zoom room with one of our coffee hour hosts who will facilitate personal check-ins as well as reflection questions on the sermon topic. I hope to see you there. For our postlude today, Pamela Roberts and Helen Lauritzen will carry us on a long voyage of healing with Pachelbel's Canon in D. The beautiful imagery is by Doug Rogers.